Mayor, this is, you put this together, so why don't you start with the voting participants and then the adoption of rules?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we, would you like to have a roll call vote first, or do you need a roll call? Everyone here? You're good, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay. I make a motion that we elect Dan Murray as chairman of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there are rules before the bodies, and next on the agenda is the adoption of the rules for the meeting. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the rules as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? So passed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I believe next on the agenda is your opening comments.
I'd like to welcome everyone here, and my perception is this is a way of opening the line of communication between the boards. I wish the EDA was sitting here also, but that's for a further time out. And this is to form a path to move forward, to get an agreement on an action plan. We need to have a solid action plan so we know where we're going before we put a cart before a horse. I'll just explain momentarily that an action plan is who, what, when, where, why, how, what the goals are, and then you evaluate at the end for effectiveness. That's the 8 steps of an action plan. And we also have to understand that information pertaining to lawsuits and court actions can't be discussed here. You know, it's client privilege, client attorney privilege. Other than that, I hope this to be a very productive meeting. In fact, that's what I'm looking for, is to be a very productive meeting. And from there, Mr. Mayor, would you like to make comments?
Sure, thank you, Dan. I too want to echo the same sentiments, and I'm speaking on behalf of council. We're here tonight to have some questions, to ask you some questions. Hopefully get some answers. Where we don't have answers, hopefully get time frames in which we can get answers in the future. We too want to see a real strong partnership with the county. And look, I don't believe we're interested at all at treading over old territory, old ground. I agree with you, Mr. Murray. I think the legal process, the special grand jury, the federal investigation, if that's happening or not, all that's going to work itself out. So from a legal perspective, from what I hope to be true justice, if justice is to be served, I think we'll eventually get that justice. But we as two governing bodies, we have to move forward. And for tonight's discussion, I know that you had requested having a presentation by the EDA, and I was at first I objected to it only because I thought it'd be healthy for this first meeting to be with the two bodies. But I did yield to you and say, I'm going to take it back to my council, and council felt it was important tonight just for the two bodies to meet. I don't believe we've had a meeting like this in quite a while. I don't know when, and it's not really relevant. But I do believe there's some information that needs to be brought out and how we're going to move economic development forward. I'm confident I speak for the town government, and I assume I can speak on behalf of the County Board of Supervisors that we all know and need economic development in this community. We need more jobs. We need more commercial industry. We need more industrial industry. And we recognize that. Well, what that looks like, I don't know what the answer is. And when I was first appointed as mayor, a real privilege to be candid with you, I made it a discussion point that we should have the discussion about the dissolution of the EDA. Now, some have perceived that as me saying the EDA needs to be dissolved. And if I portrayed it in that way, that wasn't my intent. The reason that needs to be a discussion point from my perspective is I have heard and I have read that the EDA is insolvent. And we need to find that out tonight. Are they insolvent? And if the EDA is insolvent, and if the brand is what I believe the brand to be, which is a brand that is just, it's not trusted right now in our community, I think moving forward, we need to figure out what this economic development engine looks like in our community. And interestingly, staff on the town side, they went through a tremendous amount of research, not only preparing for this meeting, but preparing for the civil suit. And it is not uncommon for Warren County to have various iterations of what the EDA looks like. I have probably 14 pages of different actions that have gone on with the EDA. The EDA has taken many forms over the last many decades. One of the greatest reorganizations of the EDA took place, I think it was in '94, when the CDAC committee came together and put a report together. I would encourage the members that are not familiar with that to seek it from your appropriate staff. I had forgotten about it, frankly, until Joe Waltz showed it to me yesterday and read through it again. And there's some really good ideas in that document. So I think moving forward, I believe, at least the conversations I've had with council, we have an open mind, we have an open heart. We want to work as partners with the town, with the county. I know there's some sentiment as it relates to the county that the town has, when we backed out of funding the EDA, that basically we abdicated our interaction with the EDA or interaction as it relates to economic development. I believe that's a false pretense. I don't believe that's accurate. We have assets tied up with EDA just like the county has assets tied up with the EDA. So, with that, that's my general comments, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you the opportunity for hosting this meeting and staff for putting it together. Also, one other last point I wanted to say. Any comments that I have made or council has made as it relates to the EDA, I think it's imperative, and I want the EDA board members to hear this, and I want Doug Parsons to hear this. We have fine people on the Economic Development Board, and Doug Parsons is a fine man. I've had many meetings with him, so this has no disparaging comments whatsoever or thoughts as it relates to the EDA as a body today. I'm just looking at it from the future. What does this organization look like moving forward? And I love your idea, Mr. Murray, about putting together an action plan, and we can get to that later on in the meeting. But I appreciate you affording me the opportunity to speak.
Are we going to have a pledge of allegiance?
Yes. Yeah, I was just ready to apologize because we were moving too quick that we missed the Pledge of Allegiance. And being a veteran,
Yep,
I'm embarrassed. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, we have on the agenda, future of the EDA. How can the town and county join forces for not only the betterment of the community, but also mitigate legal fees? Would anyone like to speak?
I'm happy to start off, Mr. Chairman,
Go
if
ahead.
you'd like. So there's approximately 7 general questions that we have. And the sentiment behind that first point there, how can the town and county join forces for the betterment of the community? It just doesn't make sense to me sometimes that the county is spending a significant amount of resources through the EDA and perhaps independent resources of their own for legal fees and whatnot. And the town is in the process. We have sued the EDA, as you're aware. And I think it's important that we find ways of working together in partnership. As we all know, town citizens are also county citizens. And as far as an operational formula, that in the past of a 72-28% for an operational formula, I think we should have these discussions to figure out what can that relationship look like. But before we determine what the relationship looks like, we have, considering now the fact that the county is a fiscal agent, I guess that's an accurate statement. Is that an accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah, we are as of July 1st.
As of July 1st, you are the fiscal agent for the EDA. So I know there's a few questions we have. One is there's a debt service out there. There's a bond for Stevens Road, Torrey Drive, and 2 other projects. I can't remember off the top of my mind. But that debt service was due to expire in 2021. And we have been told, we're under the impression that debt service was refinanced to 2040 without our knowledge and without our approval. So how would you like us to ask that question? Would you like us to send a memo maybe to your finance office, Doug, or?
Well, and again, we just took over as fiscal agent. A lot of those, like that answer is going to have to come from the EDA as far as when they refinance and how that was done. But I think certainly putting it in writing that we could get an official response would be appropriate.
Great. So it would go through you?
I think go to Mr.
Right
Bright.
to the EDA.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes through.
It can,
Fiscal
certainly
agent,
can,
right?
but we're handling their bills. We're handling the payroll. The debt right now is still on their back.
I got you. So we'll copy you. We'll send it to the EDA and copy you. Is that good, Joe? Okay. The next question is the police department. So that's been an interesting discussion. I know there's been a number of correspondence between, and BJ, I assume it's the county finance department, or is that the EDA? BJ here?
Yeah, I'm right here. I've been corresponding with Carolyn Stemmel. She's helping out with the EDA.
Okay. So as it relates to the police department, again, not to go over old terrain, but we have an MOU and we have documentation that we were promised certain terms as it relates to the police department. We all know that's changed. We are very interested in getting a loan, and I assume the EDA is interested in getting paid for that debt. We just need to come to terms as quickly as possible. Is there a way to expedite determining what our payoff is? Again, is that a EDA question, or is that a county finance question?
That's the EDA question, Dan.
Carolyn Stemmel's given a payoff to BJ Wilson. I think there was just a disagreement over the payoff amount. So maybe we need to meet to discuss what the town believes the payoff should be and what the EDA believes the payoff should be. And so maybe just a meeting with Doug Napier, myself, and you and
finance,
Joe
or
and BJ, I think would be helpful.
Okay. Do we want to schedule a date now, or just have you guys reach out and just
Either way.
on your own? We'll schedule a date. Joe, you good? So that's an action item. Great. Thank you. Council, any questions on that? Are y'all good? Jake?
Yeah, I think it's really important that, to the best of our ability, we nail down some timelines because, it sounds great to be able to say there's a disagreement. We want to work out what the payoff amount is, but the fact of the matter is that, we've been having that back and forth for a very long time, and the longer delay that we have, that we take what originally was going to be something around a 2% interest rate on a $10 million building to a 4 or 5, 6% interest rate if we're not locking into the latter part of next year because of payoff amount. So I would love to be able to have a little bit more definitive timelines to the best of our ability, 1 week, 2 week, whatever it might be, that we're going to turn around and resolve this. Because one thing that I would hate to do is all this time and effort that we're bringing everybody together today, we say yes, it's just a small disagreement, and next thing you know, 6 months lapse and we still haven't come to a resolution on that. And I know that nobody really wants that, but meanwhile, as the interest rates rise or stay the same or rise, whatever, we're unable to lock in on a loan, which means that our debt service is going to be much higher on the town. on the town end for the police department.
Why don't we say 2 weeks? Carolyn's part-time, so everyone else is full-time, obviously, but I think we say 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, we should be able to schedule a meeting by then.
I'm very concerned, as Councilman Mays has just expressed. I expressed it last night in our work session. The council needs to have some priority on these matters. We've got a series of them. We were delayed with the new market tax credit, put us back a year. We've been after this now for a year, so now we're 2 years behind. We're just getting the police department resolved. I'm very concerned about that. And when I say priority, I mean priority. I don't mean this delay tactic of coming back and forth all the time. We've got simple questions that need simple answers. When I read from our finance director that the bank doesn't agree with the EDA's number, there's a serious problem there. So you got to have the bank involved and get this thing resolved. So I want priority. We need it, and we need it now, not 6 months from now. I can't make it any clearer.
We need priorities, just like you. We can't even get our
We're
audit, we
even-
can't even get the audit finished.
Are we
till
even,
get through things.
are we same
We're
level?
saying the same level.
Okay, want to make sure.
You know we better.
I just want to make sure. It seems like the last 2 years we haven't been. I want to make sure that we're the same level. We all have projects.
Thank you, Bill. So the next question we have has to do with the Afton Inn. So, and I have been working with Doug Parsons. I think you and I met on the Afton Inn, right?
Correct.
Dan? Trying to come up with a resolution for the Afton Inn. And again, the situation is a situation. But the fact of the matter is, we have a dilapidated building, for lack of a better term, at one of the most prominent intersections of our community, our county, and our town. And so there's some real challenges that I understand about getting the project financed. There's some council members who believe it's the EDA's responsibility to honor that contract that they have with the developer. So I think, Dan, if we can continue this discussion and find it as quickly as possible a resolution for the Afton Inn, that is a major priority for council. Dan, any thoughts on that? Are you good?
We have to get the Afton Inn done.
Yeah.
It either should be completed or become a parking lot, one or the other, but it can't stand like that, because the worst thing for people to see when they visit is a building like that is on Main Street.
Yeah.
That gives a bad reference on all of Main Street.
Right.
So we have to address that.
Great. Well, thanks. We'll continue to press forward on that. Joe, is that, you good with that? We'll make that a priority as well.
Has the town discussed the concept of the EDA deeding property to the town? I know that's our last discussion, that's where we kind of left it about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think
we were going to talk to town.
Yeah, I think the last, yeah, correct, and believe we're going to come up with an MOU of some kind to start off and say this is how the resolution, how it's going to move forward. I think that's in the process of being figured out. I know the contractor is evaluating their options, and they're supposed to be their attorney's supposed to be contacting you and contacting, let's see, who on our side? Was it Doug, or was it you?
She's reached out to me. What she proposed was assigning the lease that the EDA has with the developer, assigning that to the town once the town has deeded the property, is the concept she discussed. So that's just something we need to work out the details of that. That's something that town council is interested in.
Yeah, we're very interested. So we're going to make that a priority. That'd be great. Good with that, Bill?
Yes. I've got that as priority too for us.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, what does
Sorry, Jim.
what does priority mean as far as are we thinking like we're going to have these conversations in the next month and be a little bit more confident as far as securing the financing and the deed of land to be able to move this project forward, or
I think the town and county could the town and county, from my perspective, can move at its pace, meaning next week, tomorrow, whatever the case is, but I think we need the contractor. Right now, the contractor, it's a legal matter, frankly. I mean, there's a breach of contract right now. The contractor has grounds, I think, for legal action. They're trying to work really hard with the community, and they want to work with the community. I would hope that we could get something resolved, get an MOU, get a contract between at least the draft contract, so we can bring it to council and the county board of supervisors within the next 30 days.
That's still in good faith that the contractor would want to move forward with the project.
Correct.
Okay.
That's your understanding, Dan?
Right.
Correct.
They want to move forward the project, the longer that it's open to the elements, especially, they want to get it done before the winter, because the winter's going to take a real toll on the building. So right now, we're working on the terms of the stand-down agreement that would be in place until this lease goes until we sign the lease in town.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question has to do with insurance policies. Does the EDA have insurance policies to cover criminal activities? We've had discussions with the VISA, it used to be VRML insurance. What's the term? Versa. Sorry, the Versa policy, and there's some questions about that. And one question they brought up was the EDA insurance policies. Can you elaborate what the EDA's insurance policies will or won't cover?
That's what I'll do. So we do have, EDA does have an insurance policy through Cincinnati Insurance for crime embezzlement coverage. It's $500,000 per occurrence. It does require criminal conviction. Our only other policy, which is professional liability policy, which covers the directors of the EDA and employees if they are sued. So for instance, when the town sued the EDA, that coverage, which is through state risk management, that covered the defense of that lawsuit.
And that's $1 million per occurrence.
That's $1 million per occurrence, correct.
Is it possible for the town to get a copy? Our agent asked if we get a copy of that insurance policy.
Sure, I can send both those policies.
And that just happened last night, so this is a fresh item.
My concern is this figure is statute of limitations. I mean, the longer that we wait, we need to move on this.
Yeah, so yes, I think you're correct. The town is, in the next item, the next question I have, the town rather has, we've locked in our statute of limitations. Now, the county, I don't know how you guys are handling that as it relates to civil action. I mean, that's something you guys are going to have to determine. Another request, and by the way, just so you know, Mr. Chairman, these aren't all my questions. Council has filtered me these questions to ask, and I think some of them may have some of their own questions that they'd like to ask. Would it be possible to get a list of all the EDA properties, how much is owed on each one, the monthly payment on each, the true value of each property, and the total debt, including all credit lines? Is that possible to get?
I believe right now the EDA secretary is working on, Gretchen Henderson is working on a property book. They'll have, and Doug Parsons is here to answer as well, but, and basically I'll have a description of each of the properties, tax method number, how much is owed, the monthly payment if it's rented out, what the rent payment is.
Great.
And that was something that Ed Daly had requested, who's a board member, and I believe we should have that for our next meeting.
Excellent.
I know Gretchen Henderson.
So we think within 30 days we could have that?
We should. I know she's working on that project.
Excellent. Thank you.
That includes the debt detail of each property as well?
Okay. I know that you had a question. You want to ask them now or you want to wait? Okay. I'm going on to the next section. You good? Okay. Tasha, do you have a question? Did I cover your question?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so as you know, the town sued the EDA. And when that was done, I think we did our best to explain it wasn't a hostile situation. It was just something that had to be done. And maybe Doug, if you could explain why the town sued the EDA, because I think there's some misperceptions out there about that. Go ahead, Doug.
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
As the mayor said, it was not hostile, and I think I explained that to Mr. Parsons and Mr. Whitman before he did that. One reason was to prevent any accusations against town council that town council was sitting on its hands. We didn't want any accusations of malfeasance or misfeasance. As Mr. Sayer alluded to, we wanted to stop or hold the running of the statute of limitations. I was unable to determine when the statute of limitations began to run, when the improper misconduct began. So I wanted, to, as soon as I can, to stop that. We wanted to possibly broaden or the scope of the investigation if it needed to be. If it didn't need to be, we will know that. The town doesn't know how much it has lost. We know some of it, but again, we don't know the details of what happens, and we need to find out as much as we can. And if there's any information, again, that somebody has withheld from us, same thing for the county that's been withheld, we need to find that out. So, and that may be from the criminal investigation, from whatever investigation. We just need to sort of get our foot in the door and find out what we can. So, again, this is not hostile at all. It's just a doing our due diligence. That's all it was.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. I think that was important to state, and you know, particularly as it relates to gathering information. And one of the biggest reasons was that it was just really challenging for the town to determine our level of liability. That's my understanding. And I know there's been discussion. Again, it's a little. I for one, am a little perplexed as to. We know that there's an economic development authority. It's its own entity. It's its own political entity. It's its own corporation. The town government is its own corporation. The town and the county government is its own corporation. The Cherry Beckert report, the investigation that was done. There's an investigative report that has been compiled. There's been information that's been gathered. And the only copy we have is the copy that was redacted through the court system. Can we get the unredacted Cherry Beckert report and the supporting documentation so we can properly determine our level of liability so that we can work out arrangements during the civil suit with the EDA? I mean, we can go through the civil suit process, we can go through a thorough discovery, we can go through all the court actions, etc. That's not, I hope I speak with counsel, I'm pretty confident I do. We don't want to be in that situation. We don't want to be in an adversarial situation with the EDA nor the county. I think a good starting point, getting that list of properties would be helpful, and I thank you for compiling that. But getting that Cherry Beckert investigative report unredacted and some supporting documentation, that would be really helpful. Can we get that information?
Sure, I don't see an issue there. I'll talk to our outside legal counsel, Sans Anderson, but I don't see an issue providing that. I mean, the report that was redacted, it was mostly, I think, Social Security numbers, personal identifying information that was redacted.
Oh, that's, yeah.
So I don't,
yeah.
And then as well as the exhibits. But I can check with them and see if there was anything else that was part of the exhibits, but I don't see an issue. But I can get back to you this week on that. I just need to reach out to them and talk to them.
That'd be great. I think, I'm sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Have we made that request before?
You did make the request, and basically it was exempt under FOIA under attorney-client privilege and work product privilege.
Right.
After the special grand jury, after Judge Athey ordered that the report be produced, the same day he ordered that, we did send a copy to Doug Napier. Sans Anderson sent a copy to Doug Napier of the report. I don't think he sent you the exhibits. I think he just sent you the report, correct?
Redacted, unredacted?
Was it?
It was redacted.
Redacted. So, but I can reach out, and that's what we provide to the special grand jury and to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
So I'm just curious, for my own edification, what changed now that we can have access to that report where,
Like I said, I need to talk to Sands Anderson, see if there's anything they redacted where, we don't want to waive attorney-client privilege. So I need to see if we give it to you, whether that be waiving attorney-client privilege would be my worry. So I just need to talk to them before I can commit.
so what I'm worried about, so just to be clear, and I appreciate your last statement before you can commit, what I'm hearing is, that sounds like a good idea, but we're not sure if we can actually do that. And so we walk away from this, just want it to be clear that there isn't an expectation that we can actually get that report.
I'll get you an answer this week, but my response to Doug Napier's FOIA request was that attorney-client privilege and work product privilege applies, and that's why we don't have to provide the report for the exhibits. I need to check with them and see whether we want to provide it or whether that would be waiving attorney-client privilege. This is a discussion I need to have with our legal counsel.
Sure, and I understand that. I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that it isn't a, yes, you're going to get that report, or I'm going to check and probably give you the report, that it's unsure that we can release that report.
So that's interesting. So Sands Anderson works for whom? Who's the contract with?
The contract is with the EDA,
Okay,
and basically the county has been paying the legal bills.
directly to Sands Anderson?
Correct.
Okay, so
On behalf of the EDA.
has the county, I guess you're an interesting, so you work for the county and the EDA, right? You represent the EDA?
When there's a conflict, the county has outside counsel who represents the county.
Got it. So has the Board of Supervisors been given the unredacted or shown the unredacted version and the exhibits?
I don't believe so. I think I just sent the same version to the board of supervisors and the EDA board
The redacted version?
that was sent to Doug Napier.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so as the EDA attorney, you're going to check with Sands Anderson, who is representing the EDA, if they can release the unredacted report and exhibits to both the county board of supervisors. Oh, if y'all want it, and that's up to you. But I know Doug wants it, so we, okay, great.
I'll check with them. I'll
Thank
check
you.
with them tomorrow. I'll give them a call.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Procedure.
He's chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I was, I know you're wearing a hat as the EDA attorney, Dan, but with Mr. Napier being the attorney for the town, I think it would be beneficial at a minimum for Mr. Napier to have the unredacted. And, I mean, at a minimum, you could do like a protective order or something. That's at a minimum. And then the rest of the council, like I said, and I guess us on the board as well, but I think it's important that we treat the town as like brothers and sisters, that we're all in this together. And I think that their lawsuit is our lawsuit. And I'm advocating to you, as the EDA attorney, to make this happen.
Like I said, I'll check tomorrow and see.
Well, that's a good point, Tom. I know, Doug, can the county join the town's lawsuit against the EDA, and what would be the ramifications of that? I mean, because we've already filed suit, right?
Yes, sir.
Can the county join?
I don't know of any reason why not.
Would it be beneficial for them to join?
If the county, I would say yes. I think it would be helpful to not have a duplication of effort in money. So I think it would be helpful.
Mr. Chairman, have you guys considered that? I mean, have you considered a suit against the EDA to lock in your statute of limitations and all the other, protection for potential malfeasance, misfeasance, and in case for restitution purposes?
Yes. Simple answer is yes.
Okay.
We've discussed, we know the direction. We started the one suit, major suit, that's going on right now. So,
Right, but
yeah, we have.
But that suit doesn't have the EDA directors as defendants, nor the employees of the EDA. And we're going to lose statute of limitations if we don't join.
That's why we have outside counsel looking at that.
Yeah, just for clarification, I can't give advice to the board of supervisors on suing the EDA, because I represent the EDA. So that adverse parties, they have outside counsel representing them.
That's Bob Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great, great attorney. Okay, so he's looking into that?
Yes, it is.
Great.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm not trying to beat this one to death, but I just want to, it's a rare opportunity to have everybody in the same room. So if we are unable to get the unredacted Cherry Becker report, then I think the next steps is that we're going to continue moving forward with a lawsuit with the EDA, because we're looking your direction here, largely in part for the discovery of the information that we need to protect ourselves against the liabilities. And I think what I'm hearing then is that there's a potential where if we had the report, we'd be able, so two things, potential if we had the report, we'd be able to see the information that we don't necessarily know what were the liabilities or the exposure that we have, but then also we have an opportunity to partner with the county on the lawsuit. So I'm hearing one, that we may get the report, but may not be back in the same boat of suing the EDA. But the part that I haven't heard is, do we want to be able to partner, or are we going to find an answer on partnering together as a county and town?
I don't think you'll get that answer tonight. We'd have to discuss it with the board.
I realize we're not going to get it
And we
tonight.
already made an offer once, and then we started the lawsuit, so the county took on its own, because we didn't get any feedback.
What offer are you referring to?
The lawsuit initially, we said they were starting a lawsuit. There was an offer made to the town to join in on the lawsuit. The town did not join in on the lawsuit, so we went forward and we've picked up all the costs so far to date.
That was the one that you referenced, sharing the information with us if we paid our portion of the lawsuit. But if we did not pay our portion of the lawsuit, there'd be no information shared with the town. Is that the one you're referring to?
I didn't say it.
Also, I reached out to Doug Napier and offered to the town to participate in the forensic audit, as we call that term. But basically, Doug Napier stated the town was not interested in participating in the forensic audit. And so the EDA went ahead, the county went ahead and basically offered to pay the cost of such forensic audit through Cherry Becker. So I sent that email, I guess, August of 18, and Doug said.
Well, yeah, just a clarification for Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this point. The county did not contract for the forensic audit.
That was done at
The EDA,
by
that's the
the EDA,
EDA.
and we agreed to pick up the cost.
So you're
And
funding
then get
the
the
audit.
cost recovery at the end.
Got it. So the funding of the audit, and of which I think the town stopped funding the EDA many years ago, and frankly, I think that was a mistake. I think the town should have continued their funding formula, and that's for another discussion another day. But as it relates specifically to the audit, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the council at the time, and I wasn't on council, how about that? I think the council at the time felt that, considering the fact that, we're county citizens, and considering the fact that we weren't in a funding relationship, and I believe there was some question as far as how the relationship between the EDA and the county, it was best for the town not to finance a portion of that audit. Is that an accurate depiction, Doug? And you were there, and you responded to Dan, I don't
I
know.
think that's correct. The town council was moving in another direction.
Okay.
We turned it over to law enforcement.
So you turn the information to law enforcement. Right.
And we were the first in.
That was the direction of town council.
We did not have communication properly from the EDA on the questions. The majority of them are being asked tonight. And here we are. We were given a deadline where we'd have answers to these questions in September. And they did not come forward for whatever reason. And for me personally as a councilman, I want to make sure that we've laid the questions out again to the proper boards, and we like the appropriate answer. Because we got burned on the new market tax credit. We're now delayed again on the police department funding. And the EDA wants that off their liability books, and we do too. Because we can't go forward until all this is resolved.
And hopefully they'll be able to give you answers, because I know I can't answer for the EDA, who, what, when, where, why.
Well, but you're aware of it now.
I know that one council member sent me, knowing that you have outside counsel, Mr. Mitchell, as it relates to the county's interest when there's a conflict for Mr. Witten. I think, from our perspective, he should make a determination of whether the county should file suit against the EDA for similar reasons as the town. And whether you join suit with us, I know Doug would be open to that conversation. And the second question is there liability exposure? Because the suit has been filed, is there liability exposure between the Board of Supervisor members and the EDA board members? And, the question another question for Mr. Mitchell might be, can the county be a fiscal agent of the EDA? I know that's been contemplated at our perspective, is how can one corporation be the fiscal agent for another corporation? And I'm here as wanting to be in partnership with the county, and I think that those three questions need to seriously be asked of an attorney that is representing the county. And Mr. Witten is conflicted because he's representing both the EDA and the county. So I would, it's your government, it's your corporation. I would strongly encourage you to seek those three answers to those three questions. Mr. Chairman, I have, as it relates to third-party entities, I know there was some discussion about, I believe at the last meeting I had Mr. Witten about, our EDA civil suit is preventing us from joining forces regarding any third-party entities. It's our belief, and the advice we've been given from council, is that there's third-party entities that have exposure. There's third-party entities that we believe have acted in a manner in which would warrant sizable reimbursement to the town and the county. Again, to me, it wouldn't make sense for the county to go down its course and then the town go down its course. I think it'd be prudent to join. And the fact that we have already filed our suit, I did broach the subject based upon a question Mr. Witten asked me the last time we met, which was in order for, I'm paraphrasing, Dan, so if I'm misrepresented, please correct me. But in order for the county and the town to join forces in any civil suit against third-party entities, then we would have to first drop our suit against the EDA, and I believe you said with prejudice, which means we can't bring it back up. That way, Sands Anderson could share information with us. Is that a fair depiction?
That's correct. If the town and county wanted to use Sands Anderson as legal counsel, since they represent the EDA, they wouldn't be able to represent the town with your current lawsuit against the EDA. Now, if you want to use different legal counsel, that wouldn't be an issue. But if you want to use Sands Anderson, I talked to their principal there. Basically, you would need to non-suit your lawsuit with prejudice in order to receive any information from Sands Anderson or even discuss the topic of joining forces to go against third parties.
Got it. So, counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, and Doug, but I polled council. I don't have the authority to speak unilaterally, and unanimously, no one is interested of dropping the civil suit with prejudice. That just would not make good legal sense. But again, I want, in an effort to share expenses and throw out the olive branch, we are welcome to use another firm, another attorney, to go after some of these third parties together. So if that was the hindrance, if the hindrance was of using Sands Anderson, I don't care. I personally, doesn't matter to me. I just think there's some third-party entities that are out there that have exposure, and I think we need to consider the joint suit. So,
Yeah, no,
May I ask a question?
but that's what the lawsuit's doing, correct? We're going after these third-party entities.
Well, there are numerous defendants. I believe there's other entities the town would like to add, which are
Right.
currently not part of the
Right.
lawsuit.
We may wait until after the MERS, and then after the judge rules on the MERS, then maybe add some additional defendants.
So I can't discuss our trial strategy, but
yeah, but I guess that's what's, I'm sorry, I'm still, the EDA is the EDA's lawsuit. It's not the county's lawsuit. It's not the town's lawsuit. The town has its own independent lawsuit. The lawsuit that's currently in place. So if the EDA chooses to add other parties, that's the EDA's choice. The town is going to go after third-party individuals, which is, of course, our choice. What I'm offering tonight is the county, as its own independent corporation, should go after third-party individuals as well. So I would ask you to take it up within your body and see if you want to join the town in our lawsuit, or I don't know, Doug, what the legal procedure is. I don't need to get in the weeds, but it doesn't make sense for the town to be going after third-party entities and the county to be going after third-party entities. That's my point.
Well, that's the question I got for our lawyer. When we went into this situation, you went ahead for us and gave you direction. You kept telling us the statute of limitations. If we drop this lawsuit, what happens to the statute of limitations? So that was the bearing question while we approved and went forward.
If we drop it with prejudice, it's dead. And so that's the end of it. If we're
Okay, what's
not-
the time limit? There's a time limit there.
No, with prejudice,
It's
immediately.
dead. It's
No,
dead.
I know, I'm talking about the other way. If you,
If we non-suit it, it stops the running of statute of limitations, speaking from memory, I think it's for 6 months. After 6 months, we can revive it, but then we can bring it back up again, but I don't see any point in dropping the lawsuit. I just don't see any merit to that. Now, part of the reason, we discussed whether or not we wanted to bring in third parties, but one of the reasons we're filing the lawsuit is to get information through discovery, through the unredacted Sherry Beckert report, get information to find out who we might, in terms of third parties, we might want to sue, because we just don't want to file lawsuits indiscriminately. But as we've gotten information, we think there are third parties that we've identified that are liable now. And that's why we're reaching out here to the county, that we think we've identified third parties that we think are liable. And it would make sense, I think, for the county to join with us. And this would be a good opportunity to do that.
well, the real question is, the community is a factor here. We as bodies have to join somewhere and get this thing resolved.
Right.
Now, is it to our advantage to work with the county to resolve this legals and these third parties?
I believe it is. We're all the same community.
That's what I think.
just one quick point. If you did drop the lawsuit, you could not sue the lawsuit prejudice. EDA and town could enter into a tolling agreement to toll the statute of limitations. Is always a possibility, so then you wouldn't have to worry about statute of limitations. And if the town and county partnered with the EDA to go after the third parties, then the EDA would be able to share all the confidential information with you. If all three entities join together, then there would be no redacted documents.
I'm not sure you can enter into a tolling agreement. My understanding is public policy does not allow an extension of the statute of limitations. public policy allows you to shorten running of statute of limitations by agreement, but I don't think you can extend the running of statute of limitations by agreement. That's my understanding of public policy.
That was just the advice that legal counsel gave the EDA. So I can talk further on that.
I'm just speaking from memory, but from what memory tells me that from what I've researched in the past is you cannot agree to extend the running of the statute of limitations.
Dan, could you say that one more time, please, so I can follow what you're saying?
Sure. Well, there seems to be a little disagreement about whether you can toll the statute of limitations. I'll research that further, but basically what I suggested is that if the town non-suited the lawsuit of prejudice and the EDA and town enter into an agreement to toll its statute of limitations, which Doug and I can research to see if that's possible. And then basically the town, county, and EDA could partner to go after the third-party entities, and all the attorney-client work product privilege items that falls under the EDA could be shared with the town and county and wouldn't have to be redacted, because then there's no attorney-client work product privilege concerns. The town, county, and EDA are all working together to go after the same entities.
I understand what you're saying now. And that relationship, EDA, town, county, does not exist as it stands today without the lawsuit?
The lawsuit
Or we
right
can share
now
that
is
information.
just the EDA. The EDA has filed the lawsuit against.
I meant as far as sharing the information and working together on going after the third-party entities. That relationship would only be there if we were partnered in a lawsuit, but it doesn't exist outside of a lawsuit.
Correct. I mean, the EDA is a separate political subdivision. So basically, the town and county would actually have to join a lawsuit and then to share the information between the three political subdivisions.
Thank you.
That would bring out transparency between the groups, between the bodies.
And that's what Sands Anderson had suggested to me as a possibility moving forward.
This agreement to toll the statute of limitations with the third parties out there aren't going to agree to toll the statute.
No. Between the town and the EDA.
Oh, just with the EDA.
The EDA
Maybe
agrees
that.
to tolling of the statute of limitations.
Not with other entities.
So that's what Doug and I just need to research.
Does that impact our ability to sue the EDA after discovery?
You're saying you terminate the tolling agreement?
If we enter in, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but if the EDA, town, county entered into an agreement to sue third-party entities,
Okay.
and we find out more information on what's being shared from the EDA, that there were some wrongdoings against the town, that we would have potentially had an opportunity to sue the EDA. Are we still able to sue the EDA?
I have a question for your legal counsel. I can't answer that question.
Doug?
Off the top of my head, I don't think it can be done.
See, that's the part that's hard, and I'm sure you can provide clarification for that, Doug, later, just to make sure that that's right. But I think that gets back to what we don't know is what we don't know. And so, on the surface level, I think what you're recommending, Dan, sounds appealing, but I wonder what potential are we giving up in order to achieve that? And I think that's the part that I'd like to have flushed out a little bit more, because it makes sense. But I just would like to know what we're giving up.
Well, that's a good exchange of information and dialogue, and that's what I think. Here's a novel idea. I think both parties, and including the EDA, they want to recover assets that was ill-gotten and get compensated for the expense that's been incurred and clean up this mess as quickly as possible. I know that's the intent of the Board of Supervisors and the EDA board. I know for a fact it's our intent. Again, I really want to express tonight our desire to figure out, move forward, how we can partner with the county in trying to unravel some of this and figure it out. Would it make sense, Doug and Dan Whitten, would it make sense to have legal counsel from Sands Anderson, legal counsel from the Board of Supervisors being Bob Mitchell, Dan Whitten, legal counsel from the EDA, and legal counsel from County Board of Supervisors to meet and figure out what is the best strategy to work in a true partnership moving forward. And is that, I don't know what attorneys do, frankly, I just pay them money. So is that something that's done? Do attorneys get together and figure out where they can agree and where they can agree to disagree and then develop a strategy? Is that a prudent action item?
Sure. Yes.
And I think it's important that we look at each other to help each other, to assist each other, because what benefits the town is going to benefit the county, and what benefits the county is going to benefit the town. So if you all successfully in a lawsuit, I'm going to applaud you. I think that's wonderful. And if the EDA lawsuit's successful, it's going to benefit the town and the county and the EDA.
Okay, so if we have an action item. Yeah, Joe, did you get that? And does that sound reasonable to you guys that the next 2 weeks schedule a meeting? You guys help start the process of developing a strategy? Is that reasonable?
I truly believe that's what both council and you have to tell me if you don't, but I think we need to join together somehow and get this thing resolved. We're dealing with the community. That's what we're after. This thing of one board versus the other, that's not the way we work. We've got to work together for the benefit of both, and that helps the community. And the EDA is one of our arms. So we've got to figure this out, and I'm glad to hear that the lawyers can get together and give us something that can make us move forward.
Well, we worked together quite well, the town and the county, for the past few years. We've had no issues between us. It's been a rather smooth workings till this happened.
Yeah.
And we all have to remember one thing. When we start bringing outside counsel and we start cranking the cost, that's not done for free. They're not coming for free. So we can figure anywhere from $350 to $450 an hour plus travel for them to be here. So there's going to be a cost for the attorneys to meet. Now, I want to make sure that we're all clear that it's not a freebie, but there will be costs that both sides should share on that.
If you want discussion, I think this council is ready to understand that process. There's not any deviation there. It's a joint effort that has a cost. Now, the original cost, we weren't involved with, and we were told that the information wouldn't be shared unless the cost was shared.
Bill, the cost that I'm talking about will be for the attorneys to meet. I'm not
Correct.
talking any other cost, but I think not just those of us sitting around the tables, but the community should be able to understand that to do this, there is a cost. I've never known an attorney to do anything for free, to be honest. So we know there's a cost. If we agree upon it, that's fine, then we can move forward.
I think what Bill's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, once a strategy is determined and who's representing whom and who's going after which entity, once that's determined, I think in that process, we can figure out what the funding looks like as far as, I just don't think council's in a position right now just to arbitrarily say sure to whatever, but I do want to express, I know that we've talked to some council members, there is a willingness to partner, there's a willingness to, we've got to clean up our own house. And so I think for the community's benefit, we need to clean up this situation together and resolve it together and not be adversarial in the process. So I know that Mr. Gillespie has some questions.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a few questions here this evening, and I was just, if you could respond, I don't know if you have the answers here tonight for this, but is the EDA currently insolvent? Town Council was told several months ago by John, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name, and Zavino, that the EDA was insolvent. However, the Town Council was recently informed by the EDA that it is not insolvent. What is the current solvency status of the EDA?
But the EDA answer that?
Well, who's?
What about
fiscal-
the attorney?
But you're fiscal agent.
Please understand, Mr. Mayor, we just became fiscal agent. We don't, all that debt, all that stuff, we're handling the day-to-day bills and stuff coming in. We're not handling the loans and the other pieces. We'll make the loan payments. But the question about the solvent, whether it's solvent, that's a good question for their auditor. You know, Yalhide Barber's working with Carolyn Stimmel, who's working with the staff, trying to put together the finances. They're still trying to figure those pieces out.
Okay, I got it. So it's fair to say you don't know as a county whether they're insolvent or not?
We don't have the FY18 audit yet. Currently, Yalhide Barber's working on the FY18 audit for the EDA, and Carolyn Stimmel is helping with the adjusted entries.
Great.
To make that audit happen. It should happen hopefully in the next 60 days. But Carolyn is part-time, so she's not full-time working on this. But we have also our accountant, Colin Willis, is also working on getting the audit finished as well. So then we'll have a better idea of the solvency questions.
And we do, and Dan, and later on in this discussion, I do want to talk about a meeting with the EDA. Because I think our council last night talked about wanting to have a specific meeting with the EDA. We could request that independently. We'll invite council, or invite the board of supervisors if you want. But we do want to have that meeting with the EDA board and the Parsons.
Initially, I was hoping that all three entities would be here together.
Yeah.
So we could go
you shared
and
that.
ask questions.
You did.
And I think the issue of solvency with EDA is going to depend a lot on the lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, the town's lawsuit, we will have to report that to the auditors. So any litigation you have, now that would be for the FY19 audit. I'm not sure if it was, since it was filed in FY19. We should get an FY19 audit, usually get it in January. But we'll have to make a note to the auditors of litigation against the EDA.
Sorry, one of the early answers about Sands Anderson, I have another question here that it kind of tied in with another one that I had. Are all the results and reports of the investigations of the issues concerning the EDA being shared with all the members of the Board of Supervisors?
What can be told to us, we're told what is underclaimed legal privilege, no. We know, what we're told. I don't know really any more than you do, or the public. What's in court is in court. The investigation is the investigation. We don't get briefed on the investigations. I wish we did, but we don't.
Does that include the forensic audit as well, Mr. Murray?
Yeah, I mean, you received a copy of redacted.
Yeah, that was
copy of
it.
the
I got
audit.
to redact the
I can't
But
brief,
not unredacted.
I can't brief the board of supervisors in closed
You can't.
session about, because Sherry Beckard was hired through me as an expert witness, basically, expert services. So basically, I can't, that would breach work product privilege for me to divulge to the board of supervisors what the EDA learned through. So. And now Bob Mitchell, who represents the board of supervisors, has also received a copy of the redacted report. So then he can advise the board of supervisors according to that report if they wanted to take any actions.
Well, but to the answer to your question is no, we're not given the day-to-day or the inside scoop of what's going on. No, they don't tell us.
That's what I just said. Tom.
Yeah,
We don't know the inner workings of.
Well, Dan, who are you representing tonight? County or the EDA?
Good. I went to the board of supervisors in closed session, September of 18. I told them that the next 10 months, or I don't know how long it's going to take, it's going to take a lot of my time. Do you want me to continue representing the EDA? The board of supervisors said, yes, we want you to continue representing the EDA. Because at that point, we knew we were bringing on Sherry Becker. I said, this is going to take up every day of my week. And at the time, we knew we were going to be advertising for an assistant county attorney. So they said, well, that'll be able to help you out. And I said, we actually considered bringing in counsel to the EDA, but I charge the EDA $90 an hour, doesn't go in my pocket, you know. Goes into the county general fund, and when you look at legal counsel costs for the EDA, it's $300 an hour. So we did as a cost savings to the citizens that continue representing the EDA. And I just have to continue walking that fine line between representing the EDA, representing the county. So I talked to the state bar, since it's not a conflict, it's very common in Virginia for the county attorney to represent both. Talked to the Commonwealth attorney, he said it's not a conflict. So basically each day, like tonight, I just have to watch what I say, because I'm representing two different clients here who could have adverse interests.
That's a good explanation.
Can I ask a question about that? Can I ask a question about that?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question related to that? Thank you, Chair. But Dan, you mentioned the cost, the EDA, the part that I'm trying to figure out in the relationship, and I understand that that's probably a really difficult balance to strike, is when Mr. Murray references the cost of attorneys involved. I guess the part that I'm having trouble is wrapping my mind around is what are we paying Bob Mitchell's firm to represent the county every time you have to recuse yourself? It seems like it would be more than the cost that would be floated to the EDA for your time over there. So I'm not sure, and it seems like it puts you in a precarious situation, trying to recuse yourself every time there might be a conflict. And I understand that this might be done across the Commonwealth, but in this particular instance, it seems like it might be even a stronger conflict of interest, or even if it wasn't the optics of it, certainly could be. So my questions are, doesn't it cost the county more to have
Mitchell?
Bob
Yes.
Mitchell on?
Yes, it does.
Let me say this, that the last year, Mr. Witten's probably charged the EDA,
In the last fiscal year, I billed EDA over $22,000.
Mr. Mitchell's probably under 10. So
So it doesn't cost
Mr.
you
Mitchell's only been, I think, to the board maybe twice.
It doesn't cost you more then?
No.
Oh, Mr. Murray said it did.
His
For our
hourly
job.
rate
Yeah.
is greater than Mr. Witten's hourly rate by about $210.
We've been charging $90 an hour since Doug Napier was the EDA attorney. I don't think that's changed since the 90s.
Right.
That rate's never
That's
adjusted.
forever ago.
That makes sense, and that's completely helpful. Thank you. So then, I guess then the conflict of interest part of it is like, so as we're talking about joining, like let's just say the county and the town against an EDA suit, how does that work in your position then?
I can't give advice to the county. You would have to get advice from Bob Mitchell if they want to go out, if they want to sue the EDA, because I represent the EDA. So that was the discussion we had in September of 18. Where is this going to go? At the time, the board supervisor said, no, we are with the EDA, we're supporting the EDA, we're not adverse parties. So I said, okay, as long as we're not adverse parties, I can continue to represent both parties. If you become adverse parties, or if you even want to discuss being adverse parties, you have to bring in outside counsel. And that's why we brought in Bob Mitchell for any occasion where that happens.
Mr. Chairman, I just got one more question. Are the Board of Supervisors appointing the new members of the Board of Directors to the EDA?
We do, yes.
What was your question again? I'm sorry.
Is it the Board of Supervisors appointing the members to the EDA?
Okay. Any other questions? So, Mr. Chairman, as far as I'm sorry.
I have a follow-up on Mr. Gillespie's question on that. Is it possible that those could be public interviews or publicly published list of who's going to be interviewed or who applied and did not get an interview?
The answer is yes. There's a few of us on the board that want them to be public, but the majority says no.
And thanks for answering that. Well, it's the truth. If people do not want their name out there when they're applying, it's an embarrassment if they don't get it. Coming from the manufacturing side, we've never did a public interview, and I don't think the board has ever done a public interview. We would probably get a lot less people applying if it was done in public. So
I'm more concerned, I can understand that, I'm more concerned about actually having a published list of who applied, who got an interview. and then the determination for the selected candidates. And if they're concerned about their names being there, then it can be omitted.
That we'd have to check legally, because that could be an invasion of privacy. I know people would like to see everything and know everything, and that would be great, because then we don't need Facebook. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
So really, we've never done it. And
I'm not implying any wrongdoings with that.
No.
I'm suggesting that in today's current climate, could that be a proposed change to the selection of our EDA board members?
I would say something like that could be brought up with the new board in January, and they could see and then see what the feeling of the EDA is. But with this current board, my perception, personal perception, is that wouldn't happen. I think we did a good job choosing the last few replacements. We worked hard on that. Off the top of my head, it was 15 or 18 candidates that we went through. That was the toughest time, is trying to pick what's right. And I think we have an excellent EDA board right now. It's just about all new, which is great, because they can go in the directions they have to go in. You could. Chris?
Dan, is that legally possible?
So basically, under FOIA, it does fall under the personnel exemption. Basically, any appointments to bodies, and that's when we have gotten FOIA requests from reporters for the list of who applied and their resumes, and we've always used that FOIA exemption, the personnel exemption, and stated we. Now, I mean, if the board supervisors wanted to give lists to the town council, I mean, it's an optional exemption. There's certain things where you can't get on social security numbers. You can't give up, obviously, like HIPAA protected information. But if the board supervisors want to give it to the town council, there's no issue. I mean, it is an optional provision, but it's pretty common for personnel exemption to apply to any type of appointment by a governing body.
Would it make a difference even though it's a non-paid position?
Well, because it is optional to pay the EDA members. I think it's up to $200 a meeting or $150 a meeting on a state thing. Now, a lot of counties do pay their EDA members, so it really doesn't matter whether it's a paid or not. I mean, for planning commission, they're paid, and we don't provide the resumes or applications to the planning commission either, or the BZA, any of our bodies. Whenever we get requests, we don't provide that information.
So I was asking out of transparency. I have no doubt that you interviewed a lot of people, spent a lot of time with it. I think that it's no secret that there is a lack of trust in the selection and who's on the board. And there's no implications behind that other than the fact that what can we do to mitigate the ongoing distrust. And I think that one of the ways to do that would be more public about the interview and selection process. And that's what I'd like to advocate for.
I appreciate your opinion.
So then to be clear, Mr. Murray, you're saying no moving forward.
From where I sit, my perception is a no. That's why I say let the new board in January make that decision. This board's winding down. And there'll be a new board in January. There'll be some existing members and new members. And at that time, I think they should make the decision. Most of this board has been recently appointed. So I think the new board of supervisors can make that decision themselves. I'm not going to make a decision for them.
Mr. Chairman? Move on to the next item?
Yeah,
Okay. For H3, which I believe is going to be the meat of the meeting, not necessarily going to take up a lot of time, I hope, but what are the positive and negative impacts of dissolving the EDA as it currently exists? How would it be done? Mr. Chairman, I brought this up in our liaison meeting, and I think we had a very good round of discussion on it. Again, I am not personally pursuing the path of dissolving the EDA. The reason is, I don't know what that would even look like. It may end up needing to be dissolved because of liability exposure. It may need to be dissolved because the public's trust in the EDA and the brand is so tainted that it's going to be hard to rehabilitate it. That's not uncommon in corporations. You know, I think back to Pan Am or Enron or Lehman Brothers. You know, there were massive corporations that had legal issues, and the brand was so tainted they couldn't progress and move forward. So again, I think what we're talking about is trying to find a way of reforming EDA. You were nice enough to provide a list of items that Doug Parsons was to speak about tonight. And the council agreed, we're going to be reaching out to the EDA and have him walk through those items. There's some very good items on there. In fact, well, all of them are good. All of them are necessary. But as it relates to reforming the EDA, whether it's through a reorganization, whether it's through different structure where perhaps the EDA becomes a holding institution for liability, and the function of the EDA is perhaps moved somewhere else. I have no idea what that looks like. I'm just, and you and I talked about that in our liaison meeting. But what I do believe is that we needed to have this discussion, and so, did you hand out the motion to, did it go around to them?
Mr. Mayor, do you have a copy of the state law dealing with breaking up or the dissolution of the IPA with bonds and?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Mr. Napier has briefed me thoroughly on that, and again, so I'm not suggesting that we dissolve the EDA based upon current debt they have, because state law wouldn't allow it, and frankly, we want them to hold the debt as an independent entity, as an independent corporation. What I'm a little concerned about, and I'm getting off topic, and I hate to do it, but I need to say it. In 1996, I was fortunate enough to be elected to the Board of Supervisors. And those 4 years were a tremendous period in our community. Doug Stanley was, Doug, you were zoning administrator back then, weren't you? And Tony, you were on the town council then. And much of the progress that we made started from the foundation of that CDAC document, which the mission of that was to create 1,000 living wage jobs. And the partnership and the working together with the county, we would meet very frequently. And the EDA was given very strict guidelines in which they were to operate. Decisions on land acquisitions were made jointly between the town and the county. Decisions to incur debt was made jointly between the town and the county. Decisions as far as significant operational moves were made jointly with the county and county. So there was a lot of collaboration back then, and I think we see the fruits of that. The entire 522 corridor is probably one of the greatest examples of what is the art of the possible, of what we can do together as a community. What I would like to see, and I handed out a written motion, and I mentioned this before. What I'd like to see is a committee be formed. So, with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I'll just read this motion, and then we can open it up for discussion. Is that acceptable to you? Mr. Chairman, I move that the Front Royal Town Council and the Warren County Board of Supervisors create a Front Royal Warren County Industrial Development Authority / EDA Economic Development Authority Reform Committee to determine the future of the EDA and what steps need to be taken to achieve this goal. I further move that the committee consist of 7 members, 1 member from the Front Royal Town Council, 1 member from the Warren County Board of Supervisors, 1 member from the Economic Development Authority Board, the town manager, the town attorney, the county administrator, and the county attorney, and that each entity, I'm going to strike that.
No, I think you need that. Because you need to appoint. You're saying to appoint.
And at each entity appoint a court. That's fine, I'll leave it in. Then I'll have a follow-up motion. I continue to further move that a preliminary report from the committee with the committee's preliminary recommendations be due to the Town Council and the Board of Supervisors on January 30, 2019. The committee shall receive additional comments and directions from the Town Council and the Board of Supervisors as to what further to include or not include in the final report of the committee, and based thereon, the committee shall further meet and issue a final report due to the Town Council and the Board of Supervisors on November 30th, 2019.
Correction.
First day should be October.
I apologize, did I misread the first one?
You said January. Then you said November.
Okay, so as it reads, the first date, the preliminary report's going to be October 30th, 2019, and the final report November 30th, 2019.
I think that each body would have to pass that. The town council passed it, and then we can ask legal what they think. I think the board passed it, then the town passed it.
Yes. What's legal's opinion? Are we able to pass this motion tonight in the joint session, considering we're in joint session based upon Virginia code, or how does that work, Doug?
You can. There's no reason why you can't. This is an informal meeting, and this is an informal committee, and you can do that. Depending on what the final recommendation is under 15.2, 1300, it may require an ordinance to implement it, a joint ordinance. It may require separate ordinances to implement it. It may not require anything. It just depends what the recommendations that come out of this. But right now, it doesn't require anything further.
Did I answer your question?
No, I mean, I'm in favor of this, but it just seems like it may be cleaner if your council passes this and we pass it and we move forward, just as you read it. It doesn't matter.
You can do it that way too.
Right.
That's the way we've done other joint committees like the tourism committee is, our board would pass it and then like, first we pass the bylaws and the ordinance and all that, and then we have motions appointing the members. That's what we've done in the past. This is a little different, but it's the pleasure of the board.
Well, remember, excuse me if I may, Mr. Chairman, you did pass these rules for the joint meeting, and that is provided for in the rules for the joint meeting.
I don't disagree. You can do it. I'm just saying we've done it another way in the past.
Yeah, I think it's important, Mr. Chairman, since I made the motion, I wanted to discuss my motion. I think there's a few critical aspects to this. I think tonight we're together as two bodies. I think tonight we need to vote on this. And then also, I think tonight we need to appoint members to the committee. Again, and I will reiterate my intent. I intentionally left the mission, and I know, Dan, you talked about an action plan, and I think I covered some of your points as far as your 8 points of an action plan, but I intentionally left the mission a little vague because I wanted the individuals that were listed here to get together in a committee and try to figure out, answer these questions. What does reforming the EDA look like as far as its future role? And to also determine and come up with a determination of what does dissolution look like, and is that advantageous? I have some serious concerns about it, but perhaps, again, the EDA might be able to be an entity whereby they're holding only the liability, and the economic development functions are farmed out to other entities. I know, for instance, in I think it's Colorado Springs and communities in Florida, the Chamber of Commerce does a lot of the economic development. Colorado Springs is a thriving economic development body. I also think, I think in your original agenda, Dan, or Doug, that is, that we're going to just possibly discuss bringing the EDA function, the pros and cons of bringing it in-house to the town government and the county government. Those are good questions, but I don't think our two bodies are going to be able to walk through the process to make a determination. So I thought it'd be healthy to have this committee formed, and let them let them determine how they want to organize their committee, and let them determine who's going to chair the committee, and let them determine the exact parameters by which they're going to try to accomplish this, hopefully not too vague of a position I have. So that's what I wanted to state, Mr. Chairman.
Question, please. Are you suggesting that each body appoint a person to this committee?
Yeah.
EDA, and then we're dictating that it should be the dates, October 30th and November 30th?
Yes, ma'am. So those dates, I'm frankly, when I met with Dan said an action plan has a date. And so I thought it was important that we put a preliminary date for, and by the way, this October 30th date would be a joint meeting. I'd like to see us come back together and the committee report back and say, here's what we've done, here's how we've organized, here's the question, whatever the presentation looks like for October 30th, and then they get our feedback.
So the EDA among itself would...
Did I say the EDA?
Well, you said one member from the EDA.
Right, I think the EDA has to appoint someone.
They appoint one member.
Yes, ma'am.
Each.
So this committee consists of 7 people, and the people are listed, the positions are listed, and then what I want to do later on is actually discuss appointing these people.
Well, are you saying tonight that we should appoint them?
I would, yes, that's what I'm planning to do.
The EDA won't be able to.
No, the EDA won't be able to appoint, correct. We can't do that.
I don't think they can do that until their next meeting on the 24th.
And point of order, the 30th of November is a Saturday.
Okay,
And there's a Wednesday is the 30th of October. And if I can make a suggestion, instead of saying a member of the EDA, I think the new executive director of the EDA should be part of the committee.
I'm happy to amend that and include him instead of a member. I'm happy to do that. So if the chair would accept the
Question of that.
amendment, excuse me, if you prefer different dates, Mr. Chairman, is that your
The only date I would change would be that Saturday, November 30th.
Yeah,
To make it November 29th, which is a Friday, or anything other than a Saturday.
I just pick the end of the month. All right, so we have the November 29th for the land. How about October 30th? Is that, you want to change that date?
No, October 30th is a Wednesday. That's
Okay, and the other one was to change the member of the Economic Development Authority to the
Executive director.
The executive director.
I'll second that.
So I will amend that line that says Economic Development Authority to executive director. I will change the date from November 30th to November 29th, and I believe Mr. Sayre seconded that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
If you would allow me, I would like to read about, because we're going to vote on something in a minute, but state law prohibits dissolution of an IDA with bonds and obligations. VA Industrial Development Revenue Bond Act, the IDA Act, only allows dissolution pursuant to Section 15.2-4914 of the IDA Act. It can only occur if all bonds issued and obligations incurred by the authority have been fully paid. Whenever the Board of Directors of the authority by resolution determines that the purpose for which the authority was formed have been substantially complied with and all bonds therefore issued and all obligations therefore incurred by the authority have been fully paid. And then members of the Board of Directors of the authority shall thereupon execute and file for the record with the governing body of the locality which created the authority a resolution declaring such facts. If the governing body of the locality which created the authority is of the opinion that the facts listed in the authority's resolution are true and that the authority should be dissolved, it should be so resolved, and the authority shall stand dissolved. Right now, we have quite a few bonds and loans outstanding.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. As I've stated a few times, I'm well aware of the debt, and once again, I'll restate my position that it was not my intention to say the EDA needs to be dissolved, but the committee may come back and and have the EDA be nothing more than a holding institution for its debt. So I get it. I mean, I'm aware of that statute. Mr. Napier read it to me.
Mr. Mayor, we did that so that the public could understand and hear what the legal act is governing this.
Correct.
That we're not just going off the hip,
That's
but
right.
they're being given factual information.
Exactly.
There's too much unfactual information out there. We need factual information. That's why I did that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I like the idea, it's called a reform committee, so it's, they're looking to reform, make it better. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call a question, have a vote.
I have one comment for that.
Go ahead, I'll give it.
With respect to the executive director and employee of the EDA, would that be a conflict of interest on this committee? Because all the members of this committee are non-employees of the town or county, we're all board members. And then we're gonna put in an employee. Well, I'm
Town
sorry,
attorney.
and then representation of the
Yeah,
town.
county attorneys are there paid.
County administrator, town
administrators
manager.
paid, town managers paid, so I can't see a problem there.
We're also not talking about the dissolution of the county or the
I
town.
understand that.
It won't be Mr. Whitman.
Okay. Mr. Napier, can you handle a roll call vote for us, please?
All right, and Ms. Barry. Ms. Barry's taken. Do you want to take?
Okay, I didn't see her back. Sorry.
That's okay. Are we ready?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Holloway.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Aye.
Mr. Meza.
Yes.
Ms. Glavis.
Aye.
Mr. Seelock.
Yes.
Mr. Sayer.
Aye.
Mr. T-Law.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Chairman Murray.
It's Dan Murray, yes.
And Mayor
Yes.
Tate.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really want to thank all of you for that unanimous vote. I think we've made a statement with this vote, and I think that's wonderful. In an effort to continue things to move forward, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the representative from the town council be Jake Meza, and the representative from the board of supervisors be Archie Fox.
Second.
I think we need to have some discussion to make sure that the individuals are willing to do such.
I would be willing.
You be willing? Yeah, okay. Jake, are you?
Yes, I'm not sure if there was any other member of council that wanted to take that role, but I'm happy to serve in that role.
Okay.
Council good with that? Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Bonweedy, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thank you, Mr. Fox, for that, and thank you, Jake. I literally sprung that on you on the way in to the meeting.
But I think we should say all opposed, and if somebody says no.
Thank you for your correction, Mr. Chair.
I just don't want anybody to come back on us later. I think we should say an all opposed, so now it's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, may I move on to the next?
Yes,
item?
please.
The item I, Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, scheduled the next joint meeting. We have the town manager is going to be reaching out to the EDA director to schedule a meeting with the EDA board, as well as Mr. Parsons, I hope, to get a more thorough briefing. Did the board supervisors, do you have a desire to be part of that meeting, or do you want us to go on our own to that meeting? I know you had, you wanted to have the briefing with them tonight. Do you want to have another joint meeting with the three bodies and then do that presentation just at that meeting? What's your desire,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman?
I would like to do it that way.
That'd be great.
I think all three entities have to be involved together to bring this to a head.
That'd be great. Mr. Chairman, do you want to pick a date for that meeting?
You've been picking dates, I'll let you pick the date.
Okay, great. Do you have a meeting on the 27th of August? Is that too soon?
we have a meeting on our board meeting is on
20th.
it's the 20th.
You said August.
Yes, ma'am. Tuesday, August 27th. 2 weeks. Is that too soon?
We don't have a meeting on the 27th, so that would be 2 weeks.
Members of council, is that good with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that good for staff? Doug? Good? Okay, I'll propose the 27th of August. And this location worked great, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine if you wanted to have it. Do we have room to, I guess we could add EDA over here, right?
Had a joint meeting here with all three bodies before, about 5 years ago.
Okay, great. So I guess we'll send a request to EDA and ask them. So then that'll be the next joint meeting. And Mr. Chairman, I put on the agenda here an optional executive session in case there were specific legal matters that could not be disclosed in an open meeting. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know of anything that you guys were extremely open and transparent with questions. I can't thank you enough. I think a lot of this needs to be hashed out tonight. Do any members of council feel as if we need to go into executive session to discuss any legal matters? You're good, Mr. Chairman? We're good? Okay, I'm
Entertain a motion for,
adjourned. So moved.
What time?
all in favor? Any nays?
No.
Hey, Matt, what time?